My name is Kaitlyn Griffin, and today I'll be presenting my project, #IMissYou, an analysis of collective grief on Instagram. Recently, grief has been a big part of my life. I've seen a lot more in my personal life and even on social media. A lot of young celebrities have been unexpectedly passed away. Recently, I've experienced grief because my grandfather passed away this year, and then it's been interesting seeing how I cope with my own grief. That is why I decided to do a project on this. Grief is the overall process in which through an individual comes to acknowledge and accommodate with loss. This is how we all process how the loved ones in our lives have passed away, how the beloved celebrities we see have passed away, unexpectedly or expectedly. I will be going over and studying empathy versus sympathy. Empathy is understanding how a person feels. It is being in their shoes, knowing I have been there too, I understand exactly what you're going through. And sympathy is feeling for someone. It's pitying. It's, I feel for you, I'm so sorry for your loss. Well, I'm gonna pray for you and I'm gonna pray for your family, but it's not quite understanding how that person feels. I decided to also study on Instagram's platform because Instagram has over 1 billion monthly users. It is one of the most widely used social media platforms around, and it is 71% of the users are under the age of 35. That is so much of society and such a young part of society. This brings us to my research question. Do comments on posts about people who have passed away display helpful grieving? My roadmap. First, I will go over my literature review, and then I will go over my hypothesis, and then I will go over my research design, my data collection, my conclusions, and then my limitations and further research. My first article is called Grief-Stricken in a Crowd, the Language of Bereavement and Distress on Social Media. This article is an experiment of how collective grieving and mourning on different platforms of social media are seen. It goes specifically over collective grieving because now social media is such a big part of our life. We put everything on social media. This, including grieving, including understanding how people in our lives and how this is affecting them, and then how we can help each other. This article also includes why people decide to turn to social media to grieve, because it is such a big part of our society, a part of our lives now, to put everything on social media, especially the younger generation. And then finally in this article, it goes over how people comment and react to these posts. It goes specifically over specific wordings, specific posts, the type of comments and everything people are starting to get. My second literature review is Mourning with Social Media, Rewiring Grief. The first part of this article is understanding what grief is. This article quotes, "The grief experience, while universal to all, may be unique in its expression from individual into process individual." This shows that how people respond to grief is different no matter where you are. Everyone expresses grief differently, and it's not the same for anyone, which is why it's interesting that we put so much of our lives on social media and how everyone has such a unique, closely related way that people all respond. The second part of this is understanding why people post grief on social media. The article says, social media allows the grieving individual to post photos, comments, and memorials onto their profiles as a way to express their respect and love for their deceased loved ones. People like to post on social media and they appreciate social media because the loved one's profile is never deleted that fast or ever. The loved one's profile is always going to be there versus them in real person. They're able to look back at their memories, their posts, and their words. They're able to then it leaves the individual able to go onto their profile and see these and respect and memory and go through their memories and understand the time they've had together and look back at what this individual has done. They're always able to go back and post on that person's profile and post updates on their life, like they would if they were still talking to them and as if they were still alive. And my last literature review is What is it they say about the best intentions? A life lesson in empathy and sympathy. The decision to invoke a sympathetic or empathetic response requires the understanding that our experiences are not universal. The way that everyone goes through life is different. Everyone has different experiences, and that shapes how people go through their life and how they react to things. This article clearly goes through the differences between empathetic and sympathetic responses and how it can affect people in our life that get these comments. The difference between empathetic and sympathetic is more nurturing and it's more understanding and it's more able to connect with people. Versus sympathy, it's kind of impersonal and it can come off as poor pity. The author of this has her own example of this and how sympathetic responses have completely changed how she will forever view her life, and it views as one of the most important memories in her life. My hypothesis. If people are responding to posts about celebrities that have passed away, then most of the responses will be sympathetic. Research design. My research design variables. My independent variable is the celebrities post on Instagram about a famous deceased friend or family, and then their caption, whether or not their caption is empathetic or sympathetic. And then my dependent variable is how commentators respond to this content in the comments, how fans respond, whether it's sympathetic, empathetic, or other. My sample size. The posted captions are going to be 3 celebrity deaths is who I'll be looking at. Cameron Boyce, Mac Miller, and Nipsey Hussle. I decided to do these 3 celebrities because they are all under the age of 35, which is the mass demographic of Instagram and the mass people who are going to be able to respond to these comments. And then I will be looking at 4 posts from the celebrities' loved ones that are about the passing of these celebrities and their friendship. And then the comments, I will be looking at 50 comments from each post, and then I will categorize them into empathetic, sympathetic, and other. And that's going to end up with total 600 comments, and then with 12 posts total, with 50 each. My research design and coding categories. My coding categories are empathetic, so I understand how you feel, I miss him or her, or blank person affected my life. The sympathetic responses that I see are, our thoughts and prayers are with you, praying for you, I'm so sorry for your loss. And then other reactions that I not necessarily consider would be emojis, just because they're unclear even if it is a heart, or anything unrelated to the deceased celebrity. My data collection. I'll begin my data collection with looking at each of the celebrities and giving a brief overview of who they are. Cameron Boyce was an American actor and an activist. He died at the age of 20 from epileptic seizure in his sleep. It is a medical condition that he suffered from for most of his life. People that I will be looking at that post about him are Dove Cameron, a co-worker and co-star of his from one of his more recent movies called Descendants. Another person I'll be looking at is Sky Jackson, who is a co-worker from one of his first early TV shows that he's part of called Jessie. Karan Brar is another co-worker from Jessie. And then Peyton List is another co-worker from Jessie. Jessie aired about 3 to 4 years, and most of this was as they were growing up, so they spent so much time with him and realizing and understanding who he is and growing up with him. Mac Miller. Mac Miller was an American rapper, singer, songwriter, and record producer. He died at the age of 26 from a drug overdose. I will be looking at G-Eazy, another famous celebrity and singer who recorded certain songs with him. I'll be looking at Pharrell Williams, another singer/songwriter who worked with Mac Miller. Frankie Grande is the brother of Ariana Grande, who dated Mac Miller. And then I will also be looking at Ariana Grande, who did date Mac Miller for 2 years. And then my last celebrity that I look at is Nipsey Hussle. Nipsey Hussle was an American rapper, entrepreneur, and community activist. He died at the age of 33 from a fatality shot outside of his own clothing store in LA. I'll be looking at Rihanna, who posted about him. Rihanna is a famous celebrity and friend of Nipsey Hussle. Then I'll be looking at Snoop Dogg, another famous celebrity and singer-songwriter that worked with Nipsey Hussle. Michael B. Jordan, another friend of Nipsey Hussle. And LeBron James, a basketball star who was also friends with Nipsey Hussle. Examples of their responses are, my empathetic are, I've just missed you, Cam, and I'm gonna go cry now. He was an amazing person who pleased everyone here on earth and surely did his job of always making everyone happy. He's going to heaven and leaves a huge void in our hearts. An example of sympathetic are, he's forever in our hearts, I'm still feeling for you. We didn't have the pleasure of knowing him, but you did, and my heart continues. In that response, they're speaking to the poster. And then in the second comment, it's crazy, I downloaded Family First 8 years ago, which was Mac Miller's album. And Mac collaborated with the most genuine and true artist. Music was his life, and he recognized that in anyone he worked with. Looking at my data analysis charts, I categorized them into empathetic, sympathetic, and other, and then I totaled them. So there is a significantly lower amount of empathetic responses, and then a higher amount of sympathetic, but the highest amount of other, just because most of the responses on posts on Instagram are emojis. Then also whenever I also considered looking at the captions on the poster, whether it was more sympathetic or empathetic, and if that did anything with the responses. Most of the celebrities that posted about Cameron Boyce, 3 of them were empathetic, and 1 was empathetic and more about themselves. Mac Miller, they were all about loving Mac Miller, knowing him personally and how they're experiencing and how they're going through his grief. And then Nipsey Hussle was about half and half. 1 was very empathetic, and then 1 was more sympathetic. And then in this chart, you're able to see a clear trend of empathy being the lowest amount, and then sympathetic being considerably higher, and then other being the most high. My implications are, the low amount of empathetic responses showcase that it is hard for fans of these celebrities to relate to losing these beloved celebrities. It is hard for people on Instagram to understand what celebrities are going through. And celebrities try to be as transparent as possible on social media to display their grief, but it's not always accessible. And then posting on social media is the new way to grieve, but it is not the best way to grieve. That social media is now such a huge part of our culture, and that people want to grieve on social media, but it's not necessarily the best for people. My limitations are the accessibility of Instagram. Instagram was harder to use, especially trying to use it on my phone or on my laptop. Sorting through the comments most of the time were not loading. There's over almost 50,000 of them on most of the posts. And then you're not able to go see the most comment posted, so I just had to randomize it. And then the time I had to research this data was limited, and cultural differences. I wanted to look at a South Korean star, but I didn't understand her culture enough. And then to look at my future research, I would study different social media platforms, looking at Twitter and Facebook. I would understand the different cultures. I would look at Sully, who was another South Korean star who died at the age of 25 this year. And then I would like to understand how the poster responds to these comments. These are my references, and thank you for your time.